It's been 6 weeks since her last bleach touch-up. She has about a half an inch of new growth. It's perfect timing for her touch-up. She's a natural hair color level 1, black is black, and her hair is fine and her density is super dense. This is the final result. We achieved a beautiful level 10 platinum blonde. In order to eliminate the pigments in the cortex layer, the bleaching agent has to penetrate the cuticle layers, the epicuticle layer, then you have the exocuticle layer, and you have the endocuticle layer. The alkali causes the cuticle layers to swell, and the bleaching product can enter into the cortex layer where the pigments reside. And what the bleaching agent does is it oxidizes the color out of the pigment cells. The cells don't actually go away, but the color is eliminated. And once the color is eliminated, the hair is white and it reflects what's around it. The yellow you see in the hair is the keratin. You know, our hair is made up primarily of keratin. It's a different kind of keratin on the cuticle layer than what's inside of the cortex. If you remember in the diagram, we showed where the pigments and the keratin were in the cortex layer. Well, what's also intertwined with the pigments are lipids, other keratin filaments, and disulphide bonds, lots of bonds actually. So if you know what you're doing, because the hair has already been swollen to allow the product to get into that cortex layer, since the pigments and the lipids and the bonds, especially the disulphide bonds, are all intertwined, you can go in and you can smooth those bonds and you can relax the hair. I'm not saying straighten it bone straight, but you can definitely loosen the disulphide bonds and the hair will be more relaxed if it's super coily. And that's really the foundation of the new Keratin Smoothing Treatments. This is step 2, actually, of the Keratin Smoothing Treatment. I'm drying the keratin solution into her damp hair. If her hair was longer, I would have sectioned her hair for complete control. But because her hair is short, and this is her second keratin treatment, I'm most focused on her new growth. But we do have to, in an orderly fashion, dry her hair. You don't want to let the heat from the blow dryer dry the surrounding hair. You want the hair to be smooth and pulled as you dry it. If you're going through the drying process and a section dries out, go back and re-wet it. Maybe spray some water on. Use some really good water, some deionized water, some bottled water. Don't use tap water. I started by drying the crown and the front sections, right? The crown is at the very top of the head. The bang area in America is called the fringe in the EU. And then you have the right and left side panels. Okay, that way you can isolate the heat and make sure you don't accidentally dry some of the other hair. Because we not only eliminate pigments, we also eliminate bonds, as I told you, during the bleaching process. They're all intertwined. So I always use bond multipliers throughout the bleaching process. The only thing about the bond multipliers is it does exactly what it says. It adds bonds, it adds weights. It adds weight to the hair strand. It makes each individual hair strand thicker and more coarse, right? So that means once you're finished with the treatment, right, the bond multiplier treatment, the hair is actually kind of rough and really coarse because what we've done is we've contributed to the disulphide bonds, and it's the disulphide bonds that give our hair its texture, right? So after you finish the multiplier treatment, you have to do another treatment. You can't just finish it there with multiplier number 2. After that, you have to finish with a silky, a smoothing, a softening treatment. And that's what the keratin treatment does, right? The keratin treatment actually goes into the cortex layer. Some of the amino acids can actually penetrate depending on how high the heat is and how much product you use. Now, you can see where there's no smoke coming out. When you're getting a keratin treatment or if you're giving a keratin treatment and it's smoking, that means you've used too much product. When you're giving a keratin treatment, the tools really matter. The reason I'm using a plastic brush during this process is because her hair is so fragile. When I use the metal brush, it's because I'm using the brush, the heat from the brush to help in smoothing the hair. But we just finished a bleach process, the bond multiplier process, and now I'm drying the keratin solution into the hair. And I don't want to ravage the cuticle layer because what this keratin treatment does, a little bit of it can penetrate into the cortex layer, and her hair is super porous, so I know that it will. And I don't want to over keratinize the hair, right? The good thing about this treatment is that at the first rinse, right, after you finish the treatment, after the first rinse, any excess keratin is rinsed out. So even this client here, she mentioned, oh, what about the formaldehyde? And I was like, formaldehyde, girl, I love formaldehyde, right? I've used a ton of keratin products. I've been doing keratin treatments since 2011. Okay, so I know keratin. Keratin is our best friend. It's keratin that our hair needs to replenish itself because our hair is made out of keratin. Back in the day, in the 80s, they knew that keratin was the answer. The problem was they could not get the molecular weight down. They could not get the size of the molecule to penetrate into the hair shaft, right? They couldn't do it. But now, fast forward 2024, right? We have nanotechnology, and it's moved all industries forward, including the hair care game. So now we have conditioners and products that can actually penetrate, whether it's the epi, the outer cuticle layer, the exo, the next layer, or the endo, the inner cuticle layer. And some of them can, the new demi-permanent conditioning treatments, they can even penetrate into the cortex layer. It's amazing. It's a game changer. And that's why Beauty Wellness Hair Care really created this channel, so we can share modern hair care products and techniques for textured hair girls. Now, I know everybody's stuck on, 4C, 2B, 3C. That's just marketing hype created by L'Oreal to get you to buy their products. What really matters with curly hair, coily hair, textured hair girls is the diameter of each individual hair strand and the density, how many hairs per square inch. That determines what products you use, what tools you use, what treatments you get. Notice how I'm turning my wrist as I move the brush and the dryer together. I always use a nozzle. It concentrates the heat and it helps me dry the hair faster. I always use an ionic blow dryer. The ionic blow dryer is healthier for the hair. It makes the hair shinier and the hair dries faster. The difference between a cheap blow dryer and a more professional, expensive blow dryer is the motor, right? It's the motor that generates the heat. And now that we understand ionic technology, it allows the moisture to evaporate from the hair without abrading the cuticle layer. Instead of making traditional horizontal parts, notice that I'm making vertical parts. I'm drying the hair in the direction of the finished style. That will help in the final comb out as well as her maintenance at home, right? What we're doing is we're drying the keratin solution into the hair, and we're also rearranging the hydrogen and disulphide bonds. So instead of just with no pattern in mind, drying the hair just randomly, right, which will just contribute to an abraded cuticle layer and rough and not silky hair, you want to be intentional about the blow drying process, whether you're doing a keratin treatment or whether you're just blow drying the hair. You want to dry it in sections. You don't want to over dry. You don't want to dry the surrounding hair before you're able to stretch it. You want to pull the hair taut. You want to have a smooth flow. You don't want to stop midway in the drying process. You want to dry all the way to the ends. That makes sure that the cuticle layer is all laying in one direction and that it's smooth. Once you get the blow dry process down, it makes smoothing and straightening and silkening the hair so much easier. You don't have to use a lot of high heat when you go in with the flat iron phase. I'm a professional, and I define this process as modern thermal smoothing. It's using modern heat, ceramic heat, ionic heat to smooth the cuticle layer. It's the first step. The next step is the flat iron. There are three main types of keratins that they use for hair treatments. There is the vegetable type, which are like the wheat and the oat. When you see the hydrolyzed oat or wheat in the ingredient list, that's what that is. That's a vegetable keratin, right? Then you have a animal keratin, which could come from, say, sheep, right? So it's animal based, not good for vegans. And then there is what I use, which actually mimics human hair keratin, which is why they need to use a formaldehyde to preserve it and make sure no other stuff be growing in the bottle, right? Because hair is just amino acids, proteins, polypeptides, right? And now they have this CRISPR technology that they can recreate hair in the lab, right? And that's what this keratin is that I'm using, and it's amazing. I'm almost done with drying the keratin solution into the hair. After the hair is completely dry, then I'll go in with the flat iron to seal the keratin onto the cuticle layers. I wanted to give you a really close-up shot of drying this section. First of all, I'm going through and I'm eliminating the excess moisture. It wasn't wet, right? But it was damp. So it's damp with the solution, the keratin solution on it. And that solution makes it so easy to go in and comb. Or brush. There's no tangles. There's no snarls. Notice how I'm rolling the brush, right? That adds to stretching the hair. You want to dry the hair when it's wet, right? And it's stretched. And then the hair will be smooth and straight, no matter if it has a chemical or a leave-in or keratin. It's the process, it's the technique of thermal smoothing with the blow dryer that helps textured hair really remain healthy and smooth and shiny. We're using the heat from the blow dryer to smooth the cuticle and seal the keratin product into the cuticle layers. I'm taking thin slices and I'm blending that hair into hair that's already been dried once I've taken out the excess moisture. That way, all of the hair will be smooth and the cuticle will be aligned in the same direction. I'm actually adding a C formation to the drying process, and that will leave the hair with incredible body. A lot of times when people get a keratin treatment, they'll complain that the hair is too straight, right? Well, number one, that's because the stylist probably used too much product, and the stylist also used the heat too high. Remember, heat will break bonds, right? And if you use the heat too high, it will break bonds permanently. What's happening when your hair is coily from a blow dry and then you hit it with the flat iron and it gets smooth, where you're temporarily breaking bonds, right? Remember, the disulphide bonds, the lipids, the pigments, they're all intertwined. So when you go in there with the bleach to eliminate the pigment, you also eliminate keratin and lipids and bonds. But now we have modern products that can add the bonds back and protect bonds all along the process. And that's why my clients are able to maintain healthy, shiny, beautiful blondes, because I'm all about the bonds. And with this keratin treatment, with all keratin treatments, that's what they're doing. They're supporting, they're enhancing, they're providing nutrients to our hair. It's not about the moisture, it's about the nutrients, especially with textured hair. And with the keratin treatment, you can loosen the curl pattern. You can go naturally coily, or if you always want to wear your hair smooth and straight, you can go super silky. It all depends on the final result, how the client wants to wear her hair. I'm going to drop a picture in right now so you can see how coily her hair was at the first visit, right? This is her second keratin treatment in 6 weeks. And I don't have to worry about over keratinizing the hair because I'm going to drop a toner right on top of this. And then we're going to rinse her and we're going to give her a nourishing mask. And it's going to be fabulous. And what happens is with this keratin treatment, the excess keratin is rinsed right off. The keratin will only attach itself to the abraded sites along the hair strand. Do you understand? Does that make sense? I'm going to say it one more time. So this particular keratin treatment, it will only attach itself to the abraded sites along the hair shaft. So if there's a section of your hair that's not damaged at all, then the keratin treatment will simply rinse off. It will only attach itself along the hair shaft to those particular spots that need help, okay, that need a little love. Look how amazing her hair is right after a bleach treatment. It's so silky. It's all about the thermal smoothing process. You get this right, and you won't even have to use high heat on any of your clients, whether they're natural hair or super coily. Of course, she didn't want her hair cut at all, but when she came in, she had a huge patch of hair missing in the upper and lower back. Not in the nape. It was like a shag at the bottom, but you can see where it's short right there at the upper back. I had to blend her existing hair with the breakage point and try to create a style. I did a pretty good job, I think. Leave me a comment in below and let me know how you would have styled her hair if she didn't want to cut it from this damage. I'm going to drop that picture. So from that damage right there. I'm going through with the brush and ensuring that the roots are all the way dry. With textured hair, it's super easy to leave a section, to miss a section through drying. So now we're going in and we're sealing the cuticle layer with the flat iron. Now this manufacturer suggests a 450-degree heat for the flat iron, but there's no way I'm going to use that kind of heat on this bleached hair. It will melt her hair off. So I'm going in at 320 and I'll see how the hair responds, how smooth it gets. And in different areas of her hair, I might have to increase the heat to 360, right? I'm starting in the nape area. You notice that I pin the surrounding hair out of the way. I don't want to straighten hair that I'm not trying to. Really what we're doing here is we're sealing the keratin solution onto the hair strands, right? There's a minimum of 5 passes that you use to seal the cuticle. The more passes, the silkier the hair is. I'm using a 1/8 inch ceramic flat iron. It is amazing. If you notice, it's kind of beat up. I'm going to have to or get me a new one. You can buy them on our platform at beautywellnesshaircare.com. This is what I use for my keratin touch-ups. Why? Because touch-ups are typically a 1/2 inch or less. And with this width, I can isolate and concentrate right on that new growth. Whereas if I used a wider flat irons, a 1/2 inch or even 1 inch, I wouldn't be able to get close to the scalp where the new growth is, where the hair I really need to smooth. I continue working my way up the back. You want to start at the bottom and work your way up. Then you don't have to worry about hair overlapping. And because we're smoothing and straightening, we want to straighten down, not up. I always use 1/2 inch partings depending on how dense the hair is and if this is a virgin keratin treatment or if it's a touch-up. Because this is a touch-up, I'm using 1/2 inch sections and focusing on the base at the root. That's what I want to get really smooth. How long do keratin treatments last? Well, manufacturers will say it will last up to 12 weeks, up to maybe 15 shampoos. But in my experience, keratin treatments will smooth and straighten the hair indefinitely if you use the right products. And by right products, I mean they have to be completely sulfate free, as well as no gels, no foams, no mousse. You don't want to put anything plastic on top of the keratin treated hair. right? Keratin is hair. What we're doing is we're fusing hair into hair, which makes the hair stronger, which makes the hair silkier. And depending on the heat and the technique you use, you can determine how straight it gets. You can just loosen the curl pattern, or you can completely straighten it. This is her hair with the flat iron complete. I applied some of our nourishing lipid serum all over her hair to act as a filler before I go in with the toner. And here's the toner application. I applied it 1.5 to 2 inches out first. Why? Because that was new growth and that hair had the most warmth, right? It was like at a level 8, 9. It really wasn't up to 10, where her ends were already processed and porous. They're already at 10. So I didn't need to apply the toner to them just yet. Eventually, I mixed another batch and I applied it to her ends, and look how beautiful the result is. Okay, this is a keratin treatment and a toner, and we wrapped her. Well, we didn't really wrap her. We sculpted her, and I dried her under an Ionic hood dryer. No foam, no gel, no mousse, no silicone. This hair is healthy. This hair is shiny. This hair is beautiful. I ran a flat iron through it at 320. All I wanted to do is curve and direct the hair. You know, she's gonna get home and do her own thing. So I just wanted to make sure that in any direction, it was gonna be silky, it was gonna be smooth, it was gonna be healthy, right? Oh, most important, when she goes home, she needs to shampoo once a week, okay? Because when your hair is lifted this light, any impurities in the air, your hair will absorb: smoke, pollution, dirt, sweat. So you need to shampoo at least once a week, and you have to use sulfate-free products. I don't know of any retail. You can buy the ones we use on our platform at beautywellnesshaircare.com. She won't even have to use any heat on her hair. She could just tie it down at night, and if she shampoos it once a week, it will be clean, it will be healthy, and it will be shiny. And I also use the mask. Oh, and we use that Joico leave-in. That's amazing. You can get all of these products we use on our platform at beautywellnesshaircare.com.